What's going on, guys? Agent Jim Shorts coming at you with another video for Yins today. Last week I did a video on 5 Marvel characters who deserved a shot in the MCU. I thought it turned out really well, and several people even requested that I do another video on the subject. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. Take a look at 5 DC characters who deserve a shot on the big screen. Also, if you like the content I'm putting out, it'd be awesome if you guys could take a second and like and subscribe. It means the world to me and it would really help the channel grow. Anywho, let's stop wasting time and get to the list. Starting off our list at number 5 is a fan with a devoted cult following, and that is none other than Booster Gold. Many of you may not be aware of Booster Gold and what he brings to the table, but let me tell you, you guys have missed out. Booster Gold's real name is Michael John Carter, and he was born in the 25th century. That's right, he's from the future. Being from Gotham and falling on hard times, he was eventually forced to get a job as a night guard at the Metropolis Space Museum. During his time there, he would gaze at the heroes and villains from our time and wonder about being like them. This is when he was hit with an idea. With the help of a robot named Skeets, he began to steal superpowered items from the museum for his own gain. After getting several items, including a Legion of Superheroes ring that granted the wearer flight and a force field belt from Brainiac, he took these newfound treasures, as well as some other treasures, he commandeered a time machine and then used that machine to come back to our time during the era of heroes and villains. Michael did this because he was set on becoming a superhero and marketing himself to the point where he could become rich and famous. This decision leaves him at odds with many heroes, so he is not always the most well-liked amongst the heroes of our time. But deep down, he does have a heart of gold and has helped save the world on many occasions. Booster Gold has been seen alongside the Justice League, Batman, and many other heroes. His initially selfish desires have ended up helping a lot of people, and it seems that he's changed his mind on what it means to be a hero. I think this would be an amazing DC movie. Just think about it. A bum from the future trying to reinvent himself as the greatest hero of all time in the past? It would be such a fun watch, and I really see the opportunity for some really funny and creative stories. I think the tone for this movie should be similar to that of Shazam. This would make it a really enjoyable watch that the whole family could enjoy. If you like the sound of this character and want to learn more, I'd check out some of his self-titled issues that came out in the early 2000s. We got a popular one coming in at number 4 on our list, and that is the Martian Manhunter. If you're like me, you grew up watching the Justice League and the Justice League Unlimited cartoons, and that means you're well aware of our cool alien friend. John Jones is a green Martian from the planet Mars. He has slightly varying backstories depending on what story you're going off of, but the basics are always the same. His planet had a catastrophe that wiped out most of the green Martians on John's homeworld. This eventually forced him to become a refugee and venture to the planet Earth. Upon arriving on Earth, John begins to use his Martian gifts to shapeshift into the form of a human and live amongst us as one of our own. Yeah, he can shapeshift if you didn't know. He can also fly, phase, and has super strength, telepathy, as well as other abilities. Now, that may seem pretty OP, right? We know how I feel about OP things. But, similarly to our pal Superman, he has a big weakness. In Martian Manhunter's case, the weakness is fire. Yeah, fire. That's pretty sucky for him, seeing that it's a pretty easy thing to conjure up here on Earth. The really interesting thing about this is, unlike Superman, who has a physical reaction to kryptonite, Martian Manhunter has a psychic reaction to fire. Fire was instrumental in massacring his people, including his wife and his kids. Now when he sees fire, he effectively has a psychic panic attack that leaves him utterly helpless. I've always found this as a really interesting part of his backstory that makes this superpowered alien way more relatable to the everyday person. Even with his immense power, something as simple as a loss of a loved one is still so debilitating for him. He can't bring them back, and he'll always be traumatized by those severe events. That being said, he's still crazy powerful and is a prominent member of the Justice League. What makes Martian Manhunter so cool is that how despite all of this tragedy and trauma in his past, he's still so kind and genuine to everyone he meets. I know that this may sound like a weird take as the main thing that makes him interesting, but it's a really inspiring trait in a hero. So much tragedy has befallen him, and there's real power and rage that lies deep within him. But yet, he still decides to be a kind and good person while still being monstrously powerful. I believe there's a term for that, and that is meekness. Look it up, it's actually a pretty cool word. But anyway, his personal struggles and immense power really make him a compelling character. He's also a cop while in his human form, which is pretty cool. Actually, some other cool facts, he calls himself the Manhunter because back on his homeworld, the name Manhunter was what they called the Peacekeepers, so him becoming a cop on Earth actually really fits with his personality. I think any Justice League movie that omits him is really missing out and could add some star power by bringing in our Martian friend. If you're unfamiliar with him and want to learn more, check out some of his comics in the new DC Rebirth run, or just simply check out the Justice League cartoon. It's actually pretty solid for how old it is. Shooting his way into the 3rd spot on our list is one of my personal favorite characters, the Red Hood. Technically, this moniker has been worn by several different people, including the Joker. but in recent times it's officially become the property of one Jason Todd. For the uninitiated, Jason Todd was the second Robin to Batman. This was after the original Robin, Dick Grayson, left to become Nightwing. Jason Todd was always a troubled kid and was a bit more edgy and rough around the edges than the previous Robin. Batman actually found him because he was trying to steal the tires off the Batmobile. Yeah, that's pretty wild. Some kid's just trying to rob tires off the Batmobile. Talk about the ghetto, bruh. Living in the ghetto! Instead of having him arrested, Batman decided to give him a chance to redeem himself as Robin. Over time, he developed some resentment towards Batman because of all the harsh training, and all of this boiled over when he was eventually kidnapped and killed by the Joker. Fun sidebar, DC Comics had a contest where you could vote to decide what happened to Jason Todd in the comic books. The fans literally voted to kill him. Needless to say, he was not the most popular Robin. He was eventually replaced as Robin by the fan favorite Tim Drake, and the world basically forgot about the dead Jason Todd. But this is comic books, so no one other than Uncle Ben stays truly dead. In more recent times, there were some comic shenanigans where Superboy screwed up reality and brought Jason and a bunch of other people back to life. The animated movie Under the Red Hood, which tells the story of Jason Todd, simplifies this backstory a good bit. In that case, Jason just comes back to life via the Lazarus Pit that's kept Batman's mentor Ra's al Ghul alive for centuries. Regardless of which storyline you're going by, Jason secretly comes back to life unbeknownst to Batman and the rest of the Bat family. When Jason comes out of hiding and saw that Batman never killed the Joker after murdering him in cold blood, he snapped. Jason decided to stick it to Batman and get revenge by taking on this crime-ridden mantle of the Red Hood. Batman had no idea who he was going up against and just thought it was some random thug trying to earn street cred by using the name Red Hood. This leads to some amazing conflicts, and if you want to see it play out, just watch the animated movie Under the Red Hood, or even play Arkham Knight the video game. After this conflict, Jason and Batman come to form a coexistence, where Jason acts mostly alone as a type of anti-hero. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. Jason is basically Punisher Batman. Yeah, he has all of Batman's training, but also uses guns and has no problem killing people. It's pretty epic if you ask me, so yeah, I'm a big fan. I think a movie of this could be amazing, and if done right, it could lead to follow-up films about him acting as an anti-hero with the Red Hood. We already saw the success on the small screen with Under the Red Hood, the animated movie, so I think we have a definite blueprint of how to make this movie work. Coming in at number 2 on our list is Jaime Reyes, aka the Blue Beetle. There's been multiple Blue Beetles, but one of the more recent ones is my personal favorite, and that is Jaime. While Jaime was the third Blue Beetle, Ted Kord was the second, and is probably the most recognized by the average person, seeing as he came out in the 1960s. Again, this is DC Comics, and the backstories are essentially a clusterfuck at best, so Ted Kord has changed many times. But initially, the original Blue Beetle, Dan Garrett, gave Ted Kord a scarab that seemed to be really powerful. Ted could never really figure out what this was and how to use it, but he decided to follow in Dan Garrett's footsteps and become the new Blue Beetle. After having a successful career, Ted died and the scarab was thrown miles away during an explosion. It eventually found itself in El Paso, Texas, where an unknowing Jaime Reyes found it lying on the ground. After finding it and not thinking much of it, it then fused itself to Jaime's spine, and he could not get it off. Eventually he discovered that this scarab turned into a suit of ancient alien technology, and it granted him incredible powers. This crazy advanced technology allows him to fly, shoot lasers, sonic, blast, as well as create weapons out of his armor. Yeah, he can just turn his hand into an axe and chop someone's head off. To put it in simple terms, he basically is the Iron Man suit in Endgame, so yeah, pretty badass. But the thing that makes him a bit more interesting is that the scarab has a mind of its own and is far less nice than Jaime would prefer. In most versions, the scarab should be hostile to humans and take over whoever is wearing it. But for whatever reason, this scarab was damaged and no longer is following those protocols, which allows Jaime to keep control of the suit. That being said, the dynamic between Jaime and the voice he hears in his head is such an interesting and really cool dynamic. The scarab wants him to be a brutal killer and not care about others, while the kind-hearted Jaime just wants to help people. It gets to the point where controlling the suit becomes such an issue, Jaime tries to get rid of it on multiple occasions. Unfortunately, it cannot be safely removed without paralyzing or even killing Jaime. I think it would play so well as a movie because Jaime is such a relatable nobody who was effectively cursed by this power and responsibility. He never wanted all of this and didn't ask for the power, but he's forced to deal with it and use it for the good of mankind. It's a simple yet powerful superhero trope that would continue to play well on the big screen. I think a solo movie on Blue Beetle would be a must-watch. If you want to learn more about this awesome hero, I'd suggest checking out Young Justice Season 2. Well, we made it, bros and girls. We're at number 1 on the list. This pick is seriously huge for me. like to the point where I'm scared to even talk about it because I want this so bad, and if it doesn't happen and I get my hopes up talking to you guys about it, I'm just gonna be devastated all over again. All that being said, my number one pick is none other than Batman Beyond. Yeah, I know, I'm a crazy 90s kid, I totally get it, but he's a really awesome character. For those of you who didn't grow up with the cartoon, Terry McGinnis is a high school kid who's pretty smart, but is also a bit of a troublemaker. Oh, and did I mention he's from the future? Yeah, he takes place 30 years from now. Granted, in the 90s, I think it's 2030 that they think is the future, but in the new comics, it's more than that, I don't know. But anyway, he's from some kind of distant future. Through a random string of events, he finds himself fighting off a gang of thugs in front of Wayne Manor. An elderly Bruce Wayne comes out to help him, but during the fight, Bruce has a heart problem and is forced to have Terry help him inside to Wayne Manor in order to get his heart medication before he goes into cardiac arrest. Once inside, Terry helps him get his medication, but then stumbles upon the Batcave. Batman has been gone for years, but Terry knows the story about the Caped Crusader. The problem is Bruce then finds him in the Batcave and kicks him out. Terry later goes home, but finds his father was murdered. Via some good investigating, Terry finds out that it was his father's boss that had him killed. This leads to him looking for revenge. This leads to him going back to Wayne Manor and stealing the new and improved Batsuit. After fighting to convince Bruce Wayne that he was worthy of carrying up the cowl, Bruce relents under strict conditions that Terry follows Bruce's rules and continues to do things the right way, aka don't kill anybody. He has a bunch of adventures on the show and was so popular he got his own comic book series that continued the story once the show was over. That being said, there are so many ways this character could appear on the big screen. The character is so compelling, and it really is such an interesting take on the Batman mythos. This story finds Bruce having to rely on someone else because of his failing body, while having to overcome his own demons, at the same time trying to lead this young man to become the symbol worthy of the name Batman. While Bruce finds himself in the Alfred role, Terry is a much more fun and energetic individual. It's a refreshing contrast to the dark and brooding nature of Bruce Wayne, which makes a really cool dynamic between these two characters. It's so interesting and really creatively genius. Neither character likes each other at first, but they're thrust into this situation where they must rely on one another. They are both stubborn hotheads with such a big ego, they don't want to ask for help from anyone. This dynamic makes them have to work through these struggles and build a relationship that becomes more like father and son than two headstrong egomaniacs. Outside of this fantastic character development, what makes Batman of the future so cool? Well, first off, his suit is freaking amazing. It's one of the few 90s suits that really holds up today. Most 90s costumes are garbage, but the Batman Beyond suit is freaking amazing. Outside of the badass aesthetics, the suit has also increased Terry's strength and allows him to fly and turn invisible. Yeah, baby, Batman can fly and turn invisible now. Bad guys, you're screwed. But the reason why I think this would be such a perfect property for Warner Brothers to bring to the live action screen is because it's set in its own future time. With all of these DCEU movies, we're really not sure what's going to happen with them. Wonder Woman is still coming out, but yet there's a Batman prequel coming out, and the Joker movie was set in another universe. I don't think they're really sure if the DCEU is going to survive much longer. That being said, a Batman Beyond movie is set in the future, far away from everything else. So if the DCU continues, they can just be like, yeah, Batman Beyond is in the DCEU. And if the DCEU doesn't happen, they can just be like, Batman Beyond's its own thing, set in the future by itself. It's just a fun one-off movie we're making because Batman Beyond's awesome. It's perfect. It can kind of be just like the Joker movie or be a spiritual successor to the DCEU. There don't need to be ties to any other characters. We don't need Ben Affleck or Robert Pattinson to play Bruce Wayne. We don't need any cameos from Wonder Woman. It can just be a cool movie in its own right. Anyway, that's my rant on why we should have a Batman Beyond movie. I want it so bad, guys. I want it. Give it to me because I want it, all right? I want a Batman Beyond movie. But anyway, if you haven't watched the show yet, you totally have missed out. Also, the Return of the Joker movie, the animated one, is freaking amazing, and it's set in the same universe as the Batman Beyond show. That movie is one of the best superhero movies of all time, live action or otherwise. Do yourself a favor and watch those. They're really awesome. And you made it! We've gotten through all 5 characters. Thanks for sticking around, guys, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did like it, feel free to like and subscribe. It would absolutely make my day. Also, stay tuned in the upcoming weeks because we're going to be coming out with a 3-part series that's going to take a look back at the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. I just recently rewatched them, and I was surprised about how much I enjoyed going back and seeing them. Anyway, that's it for today. I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your week, and as always, stay frosty.